Hello, today we will discuss about the design of experiment, and this is very important and is useful in research works and in different field of study such as in psychology, physics, chemistry and so on. So before discussing the principle of design of experiment, we will discuss about this experiment. What is the experiment? What is the treatment? What are the experimental unit? What is the precision of the design? And what is the efficiency of a design? And what is the uniformity of trials? And lastly, we will discuss the principle of design of experiment. So, first of all, you should know what is the definition of experiment. You know, the design of experiment may be defined as this is the logical construction of the experiment in which degree of uncertainty with, with which the inference is drawn may be well defined. Once again, design of experiment may be defined as the logical construction of the experiment in which the design of in which the degree of uncertainty with which the inference is drawn may be well defined. So if you are asked about the design of experiment, then this definition will be sufficient. Now you should know the experiment. What do you mean by an experiment? Then experiment is a device or a means of getting an answer to the problem under consideration. And experiment may be classified into two groups, and this is your absolute and comparative. Okay, absolute experiment consists in determining the absolute value of some characteristics, like obtaining the average intelligence quotient, that is IQ, of a group of people. This is the example of absolute experiment. And on the other hand, comparative experiment are designed to compare the effect of two or more objects on some population characteristics. That is, for example, comparison of different fertilizers, different cultivations process, etc. are the examples of comparative experiment. So once again, experiment is an answer. Experiment is a device of obtaining an answer to the problem under consideration. And this is of two types: absolute and comparison. Absolute in absolute experiment, an answer to the problem is obtained, and in comparative experiment, comparison of two samples are done. Now the treatments. The various objects of comparison in a comparative experiment are termed as experiment. Okay, various objects of comparison in a comparative experiment are termed as experiment, as treatment. For example, in field experiment, different fertilizers or different varieties of crop or different method of cultivation process are known as treatments. Okay, now we will discuss experimental unit. What is the experimental unit? This is the smallest division of the experimental material, is known as experimental unit. Experimental material on which the experiment is done. The smallest division of the experimental material is known as experimental unit. On this experiment material, treatment are allocated, are applied, and observations on the variable under a study is made. Okay, for example, in field experimentation, the plot of land means, suppose there is a land and a plot, smallest part of the land is the experimental unit. In other experiment, suppose you want to consider some other experiment, then in a hospital a patient will be a unit. You go in a hospital, then patient is a unit. A group of pigs in a pen or a batch of seeds, also the example of experimental unit. Okay, now what is the block? Block are known as subgroups, or it is known as strata. In agricultural experiment, we divide the whole experimental unit or experimental field into relatively homogeneous subgroups or strata, and these strata or subgroups are known as blocks. Means if you are given an experimental field and you make some groups of these fields, then these groups are known as blocks. Now we will discuss yield. What is the yield? What is the meaning of yield? The measurement of the variable under a study on different experimental units, that is plots, are known as yield. Okay, the measurement of the variable under a study on different experimental units, that is on different plots, are known as yield. Suppose you have 10 units of plots, and different seats are allocated on these plots. Then the net gain from these plots will be the yield. Okay. Now we will discuss experimental error. What is the experimental error? If a large homogeneous field which is divided into different plots of equal shape and size and different treatments are allocated or applied to these plots, then yields from some of the treatments are more than those of the others. It means if you are suppose 5 plots and you apply treatment to these 5 plots, then yields from each plot will not be the same. It will be different. And why so? It is the matter of discussion. And this is the experimental error. Okay. In such a case, the experimenter face the problem of deciding if the observed differences are due to treatment effects or due to chance factor or due to chance factor, which is beyond the control of human hand. Okay. In field experimentation, it is a common experience that the fertility gradient of the soil does not follow any systematic pattern. Means fertility gradient means urvara shakti is different for the different plots. So does not follow any systematic pattern but behaves in an erratic fashion. And these variation, that is such a variation from plot to plot, which is due to random or due to chance factors, which is beyond the control of human hand, is spoken of as an experimental error. Okay, so this is the experimental error. Means variation of yield from plot to plot is known as experimental error, and it may be due to random or chance factors. Now we will discuss replication. Replication means repetition of the treatment, or replication means the execution of an experiment more than once. If an experiment is repeated more than once, then it is known as replication process. In other words, the repetition of the treatment under investigation is known as replication. Suppose you have a plot and a treatment is applied for 4 times. Then we are repeating the treatments for 4 times, and this number of 4, that is, will be called as R is equal to 4. That means number of replications. Now we will discuss about the precision. About the precision. The reciprocal of the variance of the mean is termed as the precision or amount of information of a design. Okay. Precision is the reciprocal of the variance of the mean. Variance of the mean, reciprocal of the variance of the mean. is termed as the precision or amount of information of a design. Thus, if an experiment is replicated r times, then the precision may be decided as by the formula. This is your 1 upon variance of x bar, and this is your r upon sigma square, and this formula you know in sampling distribution, in sample survey, where sigma square is the error variance per unit. Okay, the reciprocal of the variance of the mean is known as precision of an design. Now we will discuss about the efficiency of a design. If suppose there are two designs, D1 and D2, and these two designs is replicated R1 and R2 times with error variance per unit sigma 1 square and sigma 2 square, then the precision is R1 upon sigma 1 square and R2 upon sigma 2 square for design D1 and D2, and the ratio of these precisions, that is R1 upon sigma 1 square upon R2 upon sigma 2 square, is termed as efficiency of a design. And we are considering the two designs, then it will be called as efficiency of the design D1 with respect to D2. Okay, मतलब ratio of the precision is known as efficiency of a design. In other words, efficiency of D1 with respect to D2 may be defined as the ratio of the precisions of D1 and D2. If the value of E1 is comes out to be equal to 1, in this case both the designs are said to be equally efficient. In terms of efficiency, there is no difference between two designs. And if E is greater than 1, it means D1 is more efficient than D2, and if E is less than 1, then D1 is said to be less efficient than D2. Okay, this is the efficiency of design. Now we will discuss uniformity trials, are known as uniform trials. In this case, the fertility of the soil does not increase or decrease uniformly in any direction, but is distributed over the entire field in an erratic manner. It means fertility of the soil is different in a field. It is not uniform. The uniformity trials enables us to have an idea about the fertility variation of the field. By uniformity trials, we mean a trial in which the field is divided into small units or plots and the same treatment is applied. Okay, field is divided into small units and the same treatment is applied on each of the plot, and their yields are recorded. Okay, this is the uniformity traps. Now we will discuss principles of the experimental design. Professor R. A. Fisher, that is Ronald A. Fisher, discussed the basic principles of the design of experiment, and according to him, there are three basic principles of the design of experiment, and this is your number one, replication, number two is randomization, and number three is local control. Detail of these basic principles will be discussed in coming lecture. I think it is very easy for you. If there is any problem, then discuss with me. So thank you. This is all about up to day class. Thank you once again.